Next, we'll talk about telling the complete story of research trials with a few questions for Michael. So to start off, as much as we love aerial phenotyping data, it's obviously just one part of the puzzle. So can you tell us a little bit about some of the other tools and technologies you're using to provide some comprehensive results for your clients?
Yeah, so I guess we're somewhat unique in that our trial program's really focused on a wide range of topics. So we're not specifically working in one area of agronomy. We're working right across the spectrum of the whole farming system, and any issue that might be a limitation to farmers is an issue that we'll jump in and work on. So some of the things that we're currently doing at the moment is looking at soil amelioration, pulse crop agronomy, so things like chickpeas, lentils, field peas. We do some herbicide management work. We look at crop rotations and pasture with pasture sequences, and looking at the effect of the long-term effect of those pastures on crops. And also we look at nutrient management. And I've put this suite up here because this is a suite of topics that I think the aerial phenotyping can really help us bring some clarity around. So the next slide has the measurements that we typically might apply to these trials. So things that we get in there and measured during the season. So and each of these, I suppose, the drawback is they either require some type of destructive sampling, so removing samples that you can't then measure again. They're often time consuming, or another drawback of some of these is they're qualitative. So they're basically somebody's assessment of what's happening, and therefore, from user to user, or the person making the assessment has some bias around how they're seeing what they're seeing in the plot. So typically these measurements have been plant establishment scores, or we do a lot of counts. So that takes a lot of time, people bending down all day, counting the plants along a row. Herbicide damage scores, which I said are a qualitative measurement and can give you a range of data depending on who's looking at it. We adopted actually NDVI handheld sensors 10 years ago, but we've found them pretty time consuming to use, and we ended up bolting that sensor that you see there in the picture to a tractor. So it was quite costly to drive, take a truck and a tractor around all our trial sites. Tiller and panicle counts take a long time, and also another thing we do a lot of is biomass sampling at the end of the season as well, to get a feel for differences in plot growth. So I guess why I'm interested in the platform is the next slide.
Did you have something you wanted to add, Matt?
Yeah, Mike, I was just going to ask on the NDVI sensors, the vehicle mounted. I mean, did you ever look at kind of the consistency of those measurements? Are they kind of accurate over time and within the same conditions, or do you see variations?
Yeah, I always saw a lot of variation in the data. I remember using one set of data I got back was they were used in windy conditions, and basically, I could tell the direction that the user was walking based on the data that we got back. But yeah, the height, the walking speed, and also you're only taking, even with those sensors, you're only taking a snapshot of your plot as well. You're not taking a whole look at the whole plot, because it's only taking reading points every few seconds. So and it is affected if you're in the middle of the plot, if you're looking directly over a row, between two rows. So there's all these other factors that we probably didn't use the sensors to their full extent in the end,
right.
because of all that.
Makes sense.
So going over here, can you tell us a little bit more about your planning and approach?
So yeah, why I've been interested in using drones to collect this data. So and some of the SlantRange products that we're interested in, I suppose we're looking at replacing those plant establishment scores with the emergence fraction data that we get back from the platform. Quite often we're collecting those scores or those counts just to confirm that we've got an even establishment off the trial. We're not usually using them as a metric per se. So we think we can save a lot of manpower and time with that data to actually confirm that all the plots were sown evenly and there wasn't a rogue plot in there. Obviously, I've had great success with using this the Vegetation Index, so filtering out the green from the background, and I find that particularly useful where we're looking at maybe herbicide damage on a crop, or you're looking at the efficacy of a herbicide. We've talked about the handheld vehicle mounted sensors, and yeah, I just see collecting that chlorophyll and NDVI data on a whole plot basis and taking out some of the vagaries around handheld measurement that we talked about before is important. I know that there might be some products that might be able to help us with our panicle counts in particular, or head counts in our cereals. So I'm really interested to see what happens there. I know that's in development. And also looking at plant growth and biomass cuts. At the moment we're using it as a relative metric using NDVI or something else from the platform, but looking forward to in the future to see whether they can be calibrated even further and matched up to give us some biomass data, which is quite important in our low rainfall zone. Biomass has a strong relationship with yield, so if we can know that, we can go a fair way of determining what might have happened within that crop.
Yeah, that's a lot of what I know we've been working on with you. Is some of the traits that we provide are, like, just as you said, provided on a relative scale. So we analyze the entire trial, and then we provide a metric, from 0 to 1 scaled to what we see across the trial. So to your point, once you have that harvest data or the biomass data, you can kind of calibrate that and start to see over seasons, so you can make that kind of a customized metric for you. So it's good to hear.